Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel Set Magnifique, and today we're going to be talking about my favorite patchouli fragrances. Now I've got 7 fragrances from my collection today which I believe to be patchouli dominant. I've excluded rose patchouli fragrances because if you know my channel you'll know that that's a whole other category for me and it's something that I'll do a separate video on. However, today it's going to be all about patchouli. Now patchouli is one of the notes that it took me a while to get into. I started off my fragrance journey, I really love vetiver and then I really love rose. And it was through watching other fragrance content creators that I really got into patchouli and started to kind of really get into it. And now I love it in all its manifestations. However, today we're going to be focusing on patchouli purely as the dominant note in a fragrance. So let's jump straight into it. We're starting with Givenchy Gentleman. Now, Givenchy Gentleman, this is the original one from 1974, the Eau de Toilette. I spoke about this in a recent video where I compared this to Givenchy Gentleman Eau de Parfum from 2018. Let's have a sniff. Yeah, so this is an old school fragrance. I mean, I think it's about as old school as it gets for me in terms of how the initial impression. For me, that's not a bad thing. I know there's been quite a bit of discussion about this in the comments. I don't kind of get put off by a fragrance because it smells old or mature. And this one in particular, there's a time and a place for it. It's a very good performer. It's all about patchouli, this one for me. It's one of these kind of fougères from the 70s, which is just a powerhouse. And it smells quite different as it dries down. It gets a lot sweeter, a lot more warmer as it dries down. But at first blast, it's this just megawatt fougère 70s beast, I would say. And yeah, like all of the most famous fougères, there's a lot of patchouli in there. And this one, I would even say it's more patchouli heavy than any of the other ones, such as, for example, Chanel's Anatillas, which is another sort of 80s fougère powerhouse. I think this one's much more focused on patchouli, and for that reason it's at number 7 in the list. After that we've got, this is a bit of a kind of left field one, but this is from a fragrance house called Fragonard from France, and it's a kind of low cost brand, and they do basically fragrances just as a one note basically, and this one is obviously patchouli. Let's have a sniff. Yeah, so I put this one on because for me, this is the most pure smelling patchouli that I've got in my collection. In fact, in the same way that Guerlain's vetiver is what I think vetiver smells like, this fragrance is what I think patchouli smells like. And that is incredibly earthy. You know what I mean? It's got this reputation of being a sort of hippie fragrance, and you totally get that with this one. This one, I don't tend to wear it on its own, but I'll use it to kind of support some of the other ones that I'm going to show you, which are maybe a bit weaker in performance. And this being a kind of very cheap fragrance, but it actually performs pretty well, and it just gives that patchouli base to anything that you want to wear, or amplify the patchouli if it's already got it in. So this is a really interesting brand. It's not very well known, and as I say, it's more of a sort of drugstore brand, but it's Fragonard Patchouli, and that's at number 6. Then we have at number 5 a bit of a classic, and interestingly from 2007, but it was a homage to 1980s fougère fragrances, and this is Narciso Rodriguez for Men, the original Eau de Toilette. Yeah, this one is really amazing. So this one is a patchouli heavy fragrance, but it's also a violet heavy fragrance, and the combination of the two is what gives it this very famous kind of wet cement facet to it, and for that reason it is really enjoyable to wear in wet weather, like sort of damp wet weather. And patchouli is often described as a damp note because of that sort of earthiness. It can feel, depending on how it's mixed, it can be sort of drier or more humid, and in this case it's very much the kind of humid end of the spectrum. This one again, a very good performer. This one's no longer in circulation, but sorry, it's no longer being produced, but you can still buy it. I bought this a couple of years ago here in Spain, and I'm pretty sure that you can get it on, you'd be able to find it somewhere on the internet if you really did want to check it out. But some of you might remember this. It's from Francis Kyrgyzstan, who's now got his own. He's very famous for some of the, for Baccarat Rouge, for example, and the work that he's done with Dior. And he did this originally. So it's a really iconic fragrance, this one. And that's, yeah, Narciso Rodriguez for him at number 5. At number 4, and this is actually probably the best smelling one, or close to the best smelling one, it's just the performance, and that is Guerlain's L'Instant Homme Eau de Toilette. Now this one, yeah, I mean, it's beautiful, beautiful fragrance. I mean, you'll struggle to find something that smells better than this, I think. And it's got a heavy, as is often the case with a lot of the Guerlain fragrances, it's got a heavy lemon note as the top note, which is not that common in perfumery. Normally it's bergamot in the top note or some other citrus, but lemon is often the case in theirs, with Abbey Rouge also. This one is also got a cacao base note, so the lemon note at the top and the cacao at the base note kind of, are either side of the patchouli note. And this one is just like a very fresh, very sophisticated, very refined patchouli fragrance. I would say that if you are kind of, maybe just getting into patchouli, then this is definitely one to check out because it's not too overpowering. I think even somebody who doesn't particularly like patchouli would like this one. And as I say, it's just such a good smelling fragrance. It's just, for me, the performance is a bit weak. However, I do sometimes layer these two together and it gives it a bit more of a kick to the patchouli in this one. And then, it's got a bit more longevity to it. So that's Guerlain's L'Instant Homme Eau de Toilette at number 4. The next fragrance is another one that hasn't come up before, and a little known brand was this Artemisia, and that's from here in Spain. I think it's the Balearic Islands that it originates from. And this one's called Silencio. And it is absolutely beautiful. So again, for me, it's very patchouli dominant. It's got geranium note in it, which makes it much fresher. I actually wear this one in summer quite a bit. It's very sophisticated, very clean, very fresh for a patchouli fragrance, much like this one is from Guerlain. As I say, patchouli for me isn't necessarily the freshest of notes. However, because of that earthiness, however, when it's, depending on how it's mixed, it can, in this case, because of the geranium, it's much more fresh than I would normally expect. And this one, it's at number 3 because I just love wearing it. It's a real kind of like fresh blast in summer without it being the kind of typical citrus fragrance, which you would normally go to in a humid, hot summer day. This one's just got a bit more interest to it. So that's Artemisia Silencio at number 3. At number 2, we've got Aesop's Gloam. Now this one, I'm a bit scared to spray it because they're so expensive, these Aesop fragrances, and I don't like wasting. Yeah, this one is beautiful. So Gloam, for me, again, it's a patchouli dominant fragrance. It's got mimosa in it. It's got that sort of herbal smell that all of the Aesop fragrances have. It's the one that I've used the least so far because of I basically swapped it with my partner for one of his, and it's the one that I'm most looking forward to wearing in spring because, again, it's a sort of slightly fresher take on patchouli, possibly because of the mimosa. It's as I say, it's very much on the sort of herbal end of the patchouli spectrum, but whilst being fresh at the same time. So that's an achievement, you know what I mean, to be both herbal and fresh. So there we go. Aesop's Gloam at number 2. And then at number 1, can you guess? Anybody who knows the channel might know what's coming. So it's Tempo by Diptyque. Now, Tempo is, it's almost finished. And you won't get a better patchouli fragrance than this one, I don't think. And that is because, why? Because Tempo, it's got a matte note in the top, so a sort of tea note. It's got cacao in the base as well. It's a very, very dominant patchouli note without that sort of hippie feel to it, without it being too earthy. It's, again, if you're not really into patchouli, it's one that I would suggest you go and try, you go and have a look. for it and see what you think, because this was actually the one that got me into patchouli in the first place. And despite having kind of experimented with lots of other patchouli fragrances, I still think it's definitely the best patchouli fragrance that there is. So that's Diptyque's Tempo. This one I most like wearing it in the kind of autumn and spring. So the kind of, probably more so autumn. It's nice on a wet day, on a humid, wet day, maybe when it's a bit overcast. And yeah, I remember wearing it sort of a lot in Scotland when I was there, actually. So yeah, it's maybe more suited to cooler weather. However, it's so sophisticated that you can pretty much get away with this anywhere on any occasion. So Tempo Diptyque at number 1. So let me know what you think of the list. If there's any patchouli fragrances that you know that I might want to check out, I might review it another time on my channel. I have done reviews in the past based on people's requests. So yeah, please let me know in the comments what you think of the video today. Okay, thank you, bye.